All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. The Detroit Lions have been one of the feel good stories of this NFL season as they're on the verge of securing consecutive winning seasons for the first time since 2017, while they also have an eye on winning their first division title of any kind, whether NFC Central or NFC North, since 1993. Now, entering play today, Detroit was sporting a 8-2 record as they're right there with the big boys in the NFC. But being mentioned with the big boys and staying there are two different things, as you got to take care of your business against the teams that you're expected to beat. Now, the Lions hosted the Green Bay Packers today in their annual home tilt at Ford Field. And as Detroit was looking to sweep the season series from the Packers, it was Green Bay that were the ones who played like they had a record of 8-2. The Packers set the tone on the opening drive of this game, and they never looked back. Packers won the coin toss and very quickly marched down the field on a five-play, 75-yard drive that was commenced or ended rather, excuse me, when quarterback Jordan Love connected with Jaden Reed from 10 yards out to give Green Bay the 7-0 advantage. The Lions would respond with a touchdown, miss the extra point. Green Bay would come right back and score another touchdown. And honestly, the Packers really put their footprint on this game right after their second touchdown score of the game when the Packers defense forced a fumble, one of many to come from Lions quarterback Jared Goff today. And Jonathan Owens picked it up and returned it 27 yards for the touchdown and give Green Bay the 20-6 edge. And they never looked back on their way to the 29-22 victory today. For me, you look from the Packers standpoint, Jordan Love is looking more and more comfortable in that pocket. We saw him today. He was 22 of 32 passing for 268 with three passing touchdowns. And credit to the Packers, their defense, their pressure that they were able to put on Lions quarterback Jared Goff throughout this contest. They sacked him three times, but honestly, if you watch the game, Green Bay's front seven, especially their front four, they were living in that Lions backfield, gave them a lot of pressure, really changed what the Lions tried to do. They never let the Lions establish their running game. And it was Green Bay that honestly they dominated this game. This final score is really not indicative of what Green Bay was able to do to the Lions today. We saw so many failed opportunities for the Lions today on fourth down. They went 105 on fourth down conversions. Of course, the last one or the only one coming at the end. But for me, the Lions, they were able to overcome that slow start last week at home against the Bears, and they had that thrilling comeback win in the closing seconds. I'll tell you like this: they started off slow again today, but the Packers ain't the Bears, and I think this should be a wake up call going forward for the Lions because guess what? You're going to be playing some of these better teams in the postseason, and you really cannot afford to start slow. You got to go out there, execute, take care of your business from the word go, and do what you've been doing for the most part since you've been winning so many games so far this season. Get off to those hot starts, especially at home. Keep your crowd into the game, and then the Lions got to get back to being physical. The Packers simply out physical them today. And you think about this team since Dan Campbell has taken over as their head coach. The Lions are one of the more physical teams in the NFL. They got to get back to that coming down the stretch here. So now Detroit's 8-3, and they've left the door open for the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC North. The Vikings are now 6-5. They play the Bears this weekend, and if the Vikings can get to 7-5, look out because the Vikings and Lions have yet to face each other this season. And then on top of that, they play each other two times in the final 3 weeks of the season. So anything, and I mean anything can happen. Now, don't get me wrong. This was a tough loss for the Lions today. The Packers are ready to play, but winning those division games especially on the back end of the schedule here, as we're going into the month of December, is never easy. And it's also tough to beat a team in the NFL twice. And it's also tough to win when you're expected to win. I'll tell you like this was a scenario where we saw the Packers, not be at their best against the Lions earlier this season at Lambeau Field, and it was the Lions that ran through them. This time around, the Packers returned the favor. And I will say this again, Jordan Love is getting more and more comfortable in that pocket. He's more and more comfortable in this Matt LaFleur offense. And I think all of these youngsters together are playing with more confidence. They're more cohesive, if you will. They have more fluidity. And that's going to be important going forward because, I've talked about this with Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love has a lot of upside to do some good things for the Packers. The problem is he's replacing Aaron Rodgers, a legend, just like how Aaron Rodgers once upon a time had to replace Brett Favre. That's about 30 years worth of Hall of Fame quarterbacks that the Green Bay Packers have enjoyed over the last 3 decades. But nonetheless, Jordan Love can't worry about being Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love can't be worry about being Brett Favre. Jordan Love just has to worry about being the best Jordan Love that he can be. But then on top of this, the Packers organization has to put him in the best spots as possible to succeed. We saw the youngster Christian Watson really step up and have some big time catches. And I think it started on the first play of the game with that play action when Jordan Love went up top to Watson. And that's going to be the key because, I mean, Green Bay, one of the, if not the smallest media markets in the National Football League. It's not a place that's indicative to really go out there and entice big time free agents to come there. Yes, the Packers organization was able to do it twice with Reggie White and Charles Woodson, but nonetheless, you got to develop your program from within, and it's all about drafting these guys and developing them. And of course, not always can you draft a guy and immediately he comes out there and he's a Pro Bowl caliber player. It takes time, and I think these youngsters on the Packers are growing together, and I think there's a lot of upside for them going forward. And from the Packers standpoint, just like it was from the Lions standpoint, there was a big fine line between winning and losing this game. Because if you're the Packers, you lose this game, you drop to 4-7. You got a long road ahead of you. You won this game. You're 5-6 now, and you are right there in the mix to go out there and get a postseason spot. Now you're nipping on the heels of the Vikings for the final spot in the NFC. The Vikings, of course, right now they're 6-5, and the Packers, of course, are 5-6. So I think this was a good opportunity for the Packers to seize the moment today. They took advantage of a slug. I'm not going to say a sluggish Lions team, but they were the more aggressive team today. They were the more hungry team. That's what the Packers were, and typically the hungrier dog in the fight typically tends to win, and that's what we saw today from the Green Bay Packers on the road. So for the Lions, they got a tough stretch coming up after today's game. They got 4 out of their next 5 on the road, and included in those 4 contests on the road, you're going to be traveling to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings, and then you're also traveling to Arlington to take on the Dallas Cowboys. And like I previously mentioned, 2 times over the final 3 weeks of the season, the Lions and the Vikings will clash. And at the end of the day, those 2 contests there will go a long way, especially after today's loss. They're going to go a long way in deciding who wins this division. So, the Lions went from possibly being, looking at the top seed, possibly getting a first round bye to now, guess what? They got to buckle down because I think the Vikings are going to take care of their business this weekend against the Bears, and that's going to make this race a little bit tighter. So now, if you're the Lions, you could go from being possibly the top seed, possibly the 2 seed, to now falling back to even as a wild card and having to do it on the road. But I'll tell you like this: those folks in Detroit want this because it has been so long since they have been able to enjoy a home playoff game. You got to go all the way back to the 1993 season, and of course, that game didn't end on a good note for the Lions as they lost to the same Green Bay Packers at the Silverdome. And it was the coming out party, if you will, for Brett Favre. And of course, everybody remembers that bomb that he threw late to Sterling Sharp to seal the win for the Packers. But nonetheless, for these Lions, they got to try to find a way to get back on track. And hopefully, for their sake, the additional time off from this contest heading into next Sunday against on the road against the Saints will be just what the doctor ordered. But for Jared Goff, he's got to do a better job of taking care of the football. The turnovers have ratcheted up over the last two games, six turnovers in the last two games. And like I said, Detroit was able to overcome that against Chicago. Green Bay was a different beast today. And because of that, those turnovers really hindered this team. So Dan Campbell, who really has his finger on the pulse of this team, and he's Mr. Intensity. I guarantee you this is going to be a very interesting week, practice wise, game plan wise for the Lions as they prep for the New Orleans Saints. They got away from what they are today. Like I said, Detroit has been one of the more physical teams in the NFL on Dan Campbell's watch. And I think they got to get back to that, establish the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. Dan Campbell, of course, former NFL tight end. He has structured this team from within with the defensive line as well as the offensive line. And I think the Lions need to get back to that as they look to get back on track as they're trying to not only win the division, get to the playoffs, of course, but also do some damage come postseason time. But like I said, this was a situation where the Lions didn't play their best last week, and they were able to escape that against the Bears. They started off slow again, and the Packers made them pay for it. And now things just got a lot more interesting in the NFC North. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.